man stranded in the deadliest part of the jungle. No food, no water, and no way out. His biggest mistake? Trusting nature. What happens next will send chills down your spine. Because this is not just any survival story. It's one that will change the way you see the wild forever. But let me tell you something even crazier. What if I told you that the thing we all fear the most wasn't the real danger at all? Hold on to that thought because you're about to find out. Meet Armin, 28 years old, an adventure junkie, the kind of guy who thinks he can outsmart nature. But the Amazon rainforest? It doesn't play fair. Armin was part of an expedition team until one wrong step changed everything. 1 second, he was walking with his group. The next, he was gone, lost, isolated, surrounded by 390 billion trees, poisonous creatures, and something even worse, silence. And trust me, silence in the jungle is never a good sign. As the sun set, Armin realized something terrifying. He had no idea where he was. No compass, no GPS, nothing but a fading flashlight, and the sounds of something moving nearby. This wasn't a movie. There was no dramatic background music, no hero moment. Just him, alone, in one of the most dangerous places on Earth. But Armin was smart. He climbed a tree for safety, but just when he thought he was safe, the nightmares began. Because there's something people don't tell you about the jungle. It's not the predators that haunt you at night. It's the things you can't see. Day 1. Hunger, thirst, exhaustion. Armin knew the rule. Find water first. But every stream he came across had something off about it. Dead fish floating, murky water, an odd smell. Could he drink it? Could he risk it? And then, just when he was about to take a sip, he saw something. Tiny red dots floating on the surface. Poisonous. Had he drunk that, he'd be dead in minutes. The jungle doesn't just kill you fast. It kills you slow. By nightfall, Armin built a small fire. Just enough to keep warm. But that was his second mistake. Because fire attracts attention. And in the jungle, attention is the last thing you want. A rustling in the leaves. A low growl. And then silence. That's when Armin saw it. 2 glowing eyes staring right at him. He froze. His heartbeat was so loud, he swore the creature could hear it. He reached for his pocket knife. But then, something even worse happened. The eyes? They multiplied. It wasn't just one predator. It was a pack. Most people think survival is all about food and shelter. But Armin learned the hard way, the real battle is in your mind. His thoughts were turning against him. What if no one finds me? What if I never get out? Then, something shocking happened. He heard his own voice whisper, "Give up. Just sleep. Let it end." It wasn't real, but it felt real. Because hunger, thirst, and fear, they don't just break your body. They break your mind. On the 3rd day, Armin made his biggest mistake yet. He spotted a bright red fruit hanging from a tree. His stomach twisted in hunger. He knew the rule. Bright colors in nature usually mean danger. But at that moment, logic didn't matter. He grabbed the fruit, took a bite, and instantly his throat started burning. It wasn't a fruit. It was a toxin-filled seed pod. Armin dropped to his knees. His body felt like it was on fire. His vision blurred. He was running out of time. And then, he remembered something. A documentary he watched years ago. Charcoal. If he could find charcoal and eat it, it might absorb the toxins before they spread. But could he find it in time? Armin stumbled to his old campsite. His fire pit from the night before, ashes and charcoal still there. He shoved the charcoal into his mouth. Tasted disgusting. But he had no choice. Minutes passed. His body trembled. His stomach twisted. But then, the pain started fading. It worked. He survived. But the jungle? It wasn't done with him yet. Armin had survived poison, hunger, and predators. But what came next? Worse than anything he had faced so far. Because on the morning of the 4th day, as he took his first step forward, his foot sank. Quicksand. It happened so fast. One moment, he was standing on solid ground. The next, the earth swallowed him whole. His legs, gone. His waist, sinking deeper. And the more he struggled, the faster he sank. Quicksand isn't like in the movies. You can't just pull yourself out. The more you fight, the more it pulls you down. And Armin? He was out of options. But then he remembered something. Floating. If he could spread his weight evenly, he might stop sinking. So he did something insane. He leaned back, arms wide, chest up, and suddenly, he stopped sinking. Took him 2 hours. 2 hours of calm, calculated movement to pull himself out. And when he finally collapsed on solid ground, gasping for air, he wasn't alone. There are 2 kinds of predators in the jungle. The ones that attack instantly, and the ones that wait. And something had been waiting for 4 days. Watching. Following. At first, Armin thought it was just his imagination. A shadow moving between trees. The feeling of being watched. But then, he found the footprints. Not an animal's. Humans. Someone or something had been following him. But why hadn't it attacked? Why was it waiting? Armin didn't want to find out. But it was already too late. Because that night, as he huddled under a rock for shelter, a whisper, right next to his ear. "You're not alone." Armin jumped up. He wasn't dreaming. Someone was there. But when he turned, nothing. Then a laugh. Distant. Echoing. But unmistakable. His body froze. Who was out there? And what did they want? That's when he saw it. A figure. Standing far away. Just outside the firelight. Armin grabbed a stick, ready to fight. But then the figure stepped back. Disappeared into the trees. Not running. Walking. As if it wanted him to follow. And the worst part? It wasn't the first time this had happened in the Amazon. Deep in the Amazon there are stories. Stories no one wants to believe. Stories about people who enter the jungle and never come back. Some say, Armin stayed awake all night. He could feel it. Something was watching him. Every rustling leaf, every breath of wind. It all felt too loud. Then suddenly, something fell. A stick. First, a tiny sound. Then a sharp thud, like something was running. That's when he realized. He wasn't alone. Someone or something had dropped that stick on purpose. To scare him. To test his reaction. This wasn't a human. This was a hunter. Then, another noise closer this time. Armin's heart pounded. He grabbed a small rock just in case. And then, something dashed past. He spun around, but there was nothing. What was this? And then suddenly, a hand lunged at him. Armin's instincts kicked in. Something hit his shoulder hard. A sharp, guttural growl. And before he knew it, he was on the ground. Was this a wild animal? Or was it the thing that had been stalking him all this time? Armin swung the stick in a desperate attack. He heard a screech, but nothing fell. It disappeared. And one thing became painfully clear. If Armin spent another night here, he wouldn't survive. He had to get out. Armin checked his direction. The sun was rising. That meant the river was close. But he had to move. Fast. So he ran. Through the thick trees over jagged rocks. Then he spotted it. A small stream. He just needed to go a little further. And then, from behind him, a deafening scream. This wasn't human. It wasn't an animal. It was something else. Armin sprinted faster. Through the mud, the thorns, the pain, he had to survive. Then suddenly, light. An opening. And then he heard it. A helicopter. Armin had never been so grateful to see daylight. The forest was ending. He saw a small village ahead. He waved his hands, shouted for help, and then, darkness. When he woke up, he was in a hospital. Alive. But what happened that night, he could never forget. The forest wasn't just a forest. It was hiding something. Something no one talks about. Armin survived. But the forest would haunt him forever. What had he encountered? A wild predator? A lost human? Or something much worse? Some questions never have answers. And maybe that's the scariest survival lesson of all. What would you do in his place? Was this just a survival story? Or was something else lurking in that jungle? Comment below what you think. And if you want more thrilling stories, make sure to hit the like button. This isn't the end. We'll be back with another shocking story soon. Until then, stay safe.